As my parents drain the last dollars from my college fund for my brother's luxury MacBook, I'm meeting with senior bank officials about the unauthorized withdrawals totaling $35,000. While they brag to family about their son's business genius, I'm finalizing the documents that will freeze our accounts by morning. They have no idea that their financially naive daughter has been documenting every transaction for 6 months and is about to turn their Sunday family dinner into a financial reckoning they never saw coming. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My hand remains steady as I sign another withdrawal slip at Meridian Credit Union, a quiet smile playing at my lips. Through the glass partitions of the bank, I can see my mother's silver Honda CR-V waiting in the parking lot, engine running. She thinks I'm depositing the check from my weekend catering job into my accessible account, the one they convinced me to open when I turned 16 so they could help me manage my finances. The irony isn't lost on me. The same bank where they opened my first savings account at age 8. The same bank that just emailed me confirmation of a $3,500 transfer from my actual savings to my brother's business account. The 5th such transfer. In 6 months. Miss Calloway, are you absolutely certain about this arrangement? Mrs. Patel, my regular teller, watches me with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Her tortoiseshell glasses catch the fluorescent light as she processes another transfer, this time moving money from my accessible account to my new secret one. We could speak with your parents if you'd like, she offers hesitantly. I turn my phone toward her, showing a text thread with my mother. The timestamp reads 3 minutes ago. Just making sure you're depositing all of the catering money, sweetie. Remember how we talked about family supporting family? Noah really needs the capital for his startup's relaunch. The timing, I say, taking my receipt with a flourish, is perfect. My phone buzzes with an incoming call from my father. I answer with practiced cheerfulness, turning away from Mrs. Patel's sympathetic gaze. Hi, Dad. Yes, just finishing at the bank now. Deposited everything, just like Mom asked. I've saved every conversation like this from the past 6 months. Each one corresponds perfectly with a withdrawal from my college fund, the one they started when I was born, the one they promised would be mine for education. Each withdrawal matches exactly with cash injections into Noah's series of failed business ventures, the artisanal hot sauce company that lasted 3 months, the cryptocurrency consulting firm that collapsed when he couldn't explain blockchain, to actual investors. And now, the premium dog accessory brand that's hemorrhaging money. But unlike most betrayed daughters, I didn't confront them with tears and accusations. I didn't storm out of family dinner or threaten to cut contact. Instead, I did what I've always done when underestimated. I got methodical. This transfer, confirmation, Mrs. Patel points to a particular line on my statement, shows they've withdrawn another $3,500 yesterday. That brings the total to $35,000. Once you sign this form, we'll initiate the account freeze and investigation. There's no going back after this. I think about breakfast this morning, how my mother praised my brother's business acumen while asking if I could pick up extra catering shifts. How my father mentioned that modest community colleges are often underrated, while simultaneously discussing the merits of an MBA program for Noah. Good, I say, my signature flowing across the paper. That's exactly what I want. My phone lights up with another notification, a post from Noah on Instagram showing off his brand new MacBook Pro, captioned, "Investing in yourself is always worth it. Entrepreneur life. Blessed." I screenshot it, noting the time and date. It matches perfectly with yesterday's withdrawal from my account. The forensic banking team will begin their investigation on Monday morning, Mrs. Patel explains, organizing the paperwork carefully. Given what you've already documented about the account access and unauthorized withdrawals, they'll likely find everything we need for the bank to take action. I've kept everything, I confirm, pulling up a folder on my phone. Here's every Conversation where they claimed the money was still being saved for my education. Every text where they asked me to deposit my paychecks for safekeeping. Every family email chain where they praised Noah's business while suggesting I focus on more realistic goals. Mrs. Patel's eyes widen as she scrolls through the meticulously organized evidence. This is remarkably thorough. I had plenty of time to document everything, I say dryly. You know, between my 2 jobs, full-time classes, and listening to my parents explain how Noah's dog bandana business is going to revolutionize the pet accessory space. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a family group chat notification. Sunday dinner plans being discussed. My father chimes in, "Let's make it special. We'll celebrate Noah's new business location." I have to suppress a bitter laugh. I know exactly how they're planning to pay the security deposit on that new location. I've seen the pending withdrawal request on my account, scheduled for Monday morning, the final $7,000 that would have paid for my first semester at the state university. "Last one?" Mrs. Patel says, sliding the final form across the desk. This authorizes the bank to freeze all transactions on the account effective immediately and launches the formal investigation into unauthorized access. I don't hesitate. My signature flows across the paper, years of silent hurt and systematic betrayal channeled into each curve and line. Another notification pops up, my mother going live on Facebook from what's supposed to be a financial planning seminar. I recognize the background. It's the mall food court. I can see shopping bags from premium stores piled beside her as she talks about making sacrifices for her children's futures. "Let them enjoy their weekend," I say, standing up and smoothing my department store dress, the one my mother said was good enough for my scholarship interview while spending $400 on Noah's investment wardrobe the same day. By Monday morning, they'll have a very different financial situation to discuss. Mrs. Patel gathers the papers, her expression both impressed and slightly concerned. "You know, in 15 years of handling unauthorized access cases, I've never seen anyone quite as prepared," I suggest, picking up my worn backpack. "Or maybe just tired of being treated like an ATM with no PIN code," she replies. As I walk toward the exit, my phone buzzes one last time. My mother sending her usual passive-aggressive check-in. "Taking forever at the bank, sweetie. Noah needs us to look at potential business locations this afternoon. Don't be selfish with family time." I smile, typing back, "Be right out. Monday's going to be interesting." She'll think it's just another compliant message from her financially oblivious daughter. But then again, they always did mistake my quiet observation for acceptance. That's about to become their most expensive parenting mistake. 2 years ago, when my grandfather had a heart scare, I was the one who drove him to his lawyer's appointments, while my parents took Noah to a business conference. My grandfather never forgot that. What my parents don't know is that he quietly made me the executor of his modest estate, including the original deposits into my college fund. They never bothered to read the updated account documents. The ones that specified unauthorized withdrawals would constitute financial fraud. Monday morning can't come soon enough. The morning after signing those initial papers at the bank, I wake up to the smell of French toast and maple syrup wafting up the stairs. My parents always make my brother's favorite breakfast on weekends, especially when they're about to ask me for something. The sugary aroma is practically a warning signal at this point. I dress with meticulous care, thrifted jeans and a plain sweater from the clearance rack at Target. The mirror reflects exactly what my parents expect to see. Their dutiful daughter who isn't as concerned with appearances as her entrepreneurial brother. If they only knew I spent 3 summers interning at my grandfather's accounting firm, before they pulled me out because Noah needed family support at his hot sauce company launch. "Good morning, sweetie," my mother calls out as I enter our suburban kitchen. The granite countertops gleam under recessed lighting, a renovation they completed last year while telling me community college might be more our speed financially. She's arranging French toast on a platter, the expensive maple syrup imported from Vermont placed prominently beside it. I made your brother's favorite. He has a big meeting with potential investors today. Smells great, I say, sliding onto. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you, a bar stool at our kitchen island. I notice the pile of financial documents hastily shoved under a decorative fruit bowl. The corner of my bank statement peeks out. The one they don't know gets sent to my digital account as well as their physical mail. My father enters, Wall Street Journal tucked under his arm, the picture of middle-class financial success. 20. Years in middle management at an insurance company has given him just enough financial knowledge to be dangerous, especially with my money. There she is, he announces with forced cheer. Our responsible one. Any big weekend plans besides? Work, work, work? The same patronizing tone he uses whenever comparing my catering job and community college classes to Noah's entrepreneurial vision. The same tone he used when explaining why they needed to reallocate my college fund as a family investment strategy. Just studying and a catering gig tonight, I reply, accepting a much smaller portion of French toast than what's being prepared for Noah. My phone buzzes in my pocket, a confirmation email from Mrs. Patel about Monday's meeting with the regional bank manager, Mr. Kennedy. My father pours himself coffee from the expensive machine they bought Noah for Christmas. You know, I was thinking we should have a family financial discussion soon. Your brother's business is at a critical growth stage. Here it comes, the setup for the next withdrawal. Those university applications you were considering, my mother begins, not making eye contact as she arranges berries in an artful pattern around Noah's mountain of French toast. Well, sometimes timing isn't right for certain investments. Education is important, of course, but there are many paths. Translation. They've already promised Noah the remaining $7,000 in my account. You're so good with budgeting, my father adds, reaching over to pat my hand condescendingly. Not everyone has that gift. Your brother, well, he sees the bigger picture, the vision, but he needs support with the day-to-day financial management. I nod placidly, the same expression I've perfected over years of watching them funnel my money into Noah's schemes. Meanwhile, I'm mentally calculating how the bank's fraud investigation will proceed. Mrs. Patel had been clear. With the evidence I've gathered, the case was unambiguous. Unauthorized withdrawals, fraudulent signatures, misrepresented transactions. My phone buzzes again. A text from my best friend Kaylee. All set for Monday? Need anything else for Operation Wake Up Call? I angle the phone away from my parents. View, typing back. Just finalized everything with the bank. Parents planning to empty the account Monday. Perfect timing. Is that work? My mother asks, eyes narrowing slightly. You know how we feel about phone use during family time. Unless it's Noah, of course, who's perpetually excused from family rules because he's networking or building his brand. Speaking of my golden child brother, the stairs creak with his heavy footsteps as he descends, still in designer pajamas, at nearly 10 a.m. The entrepreneur emerges, my father announces proudly, as though sleeping until mid-morning while living rent-free at home at age 25 is some kind of achievement. Noah yawns dramatically, making a show of his exhaustion. Been up since 5, actually, Dad. Just coming down for a break. Working on the pitch deck for Monday's investor meeting. My mother practically trips over herself rushing to serve him, the tower of French toast. You work too hard, sweetheart. I don't know how you do it all. I suppress an eye roll, remembering the actual bank records showing how he does it all, with my money. The laptop he was working on was purchased with $3,200 from my account. The office space he rents is paid for with my education fund. The business trips to New York and Miami, my past and future semesters vanishing into his Instagram-worthy entrepreneurial fantasy. Big week coming up, Noah announces through a mouthful of French toast. Potential investors touring the new office space Monday. Might need to spruce it up a bit this weekend. My parents exchange that look I know too well, the "we need more money for Noah" look that has preceded every raid on my savings. Actually, my father says, setting down his coffee cup with exaggerated casualness, we should discuss that, son. There might be some family resources we can reallocate. Family resources, the latest euphemism for my college fund. My mother jumps in, right on cue. Your sister understands the importance of family support, don't you, sweetie? We're all investing in Noah's future, which is really an investment in the whole family. I nod agreeably while pulling up the bank's fraud department contact on my phone under the counter. Of course. Family first, right? That's my girl. My father beams, clearly relieved I'm not going to cause a scene. We raised her right, didn't we? No sense of entitlement in this one. Noah barely looks up from his phone, probably ordering more unnecessary business supplies that will show up in designer shopping bags. Thanks, sis. When this hits big, I'll totally help with your community college tuition. The condescension is thick enough to spread on toast. Community college. As if my full-ride scholarship offers to 3 state universities don't exist in his world. As if I'm studying business administration and accounting at night because it's my only option, not because they've systematically drained the educational fund that would have sent me to any school of my choice. My phone buzzes again. A calendar. Reminder for my Monday meeting with Mr. Kennedy, the regional bank manager. The meeting scheduled for precisely 30 minutes after my parents planned to make their final withdrawal from my account. Actually, I say, keeping my voice deliberately casual, I was wondering if we could all have dinner together tomorrow night. I have something I'd like to discuss with everyone. My father looks surprised. I rarely initiate family gatherings, usually because they turn into the Noah show. Well, sure, princess. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I assure him with a small smile. Just some financial planning I'd like to talk through. I've been doing some research on investment strategies. My mother laughs lightly, the dismissive chuckle she always uses when I demonstrate financial knowledge. Oh, sweetie, that's adorable. But leave the complex financial planning to your father and brother. You focus on your strengths. My strengths. Like working 30 hours a week while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Like managing to save another $12,000 in my secret account despite their constant raids on my primary savings. Like documenting every fraudulent transaction with timestamps, screenshots, and recordings for the past 6 months. Still, it would mean a lot if we could all talk tomorrow night, I press gently. I've been thinking about my future. That magical phrase, the setup they think precedes my agreement to sacrifice more of my money for Noah's ventures. Their expressions shift from dismissive to eager instantly. Of course, honey, my mother says, already planning how much they can extract. Sunday dinner it is. I'll make lasagna. Noah's second favorite meal. Great, I say, standing up to rinse my plate. I've invited Grandpa too. The atmosphere changes subtly. My grandfather, my father's father, has never hidden his skepticism about Noah's business acumen or his disapproval of how my parents manage finances. But he's also the family patriarch whose approval they desperately crave. Your grandfather? My father repeats, clearly caught off guard. He usually doesn't do Sunday dinners. He made an exception when I told him I wanted to discuss my financial future, I explained truthfully. What I don't mention is that Grandpa has been my silent ally in this entire plan, the one who helped me understand the legal implications of what my parents have been doing. Noah looks up from his phone, suddenly interested. Grandpa's coming? Cool. Maybe I can pitch him on investing too. My mother shoots him a warning look. The last time Noah tried to get money from Grandpa, the old man had asked to see business plans, revenue projections, and expense reports, none of which Noah could produce. It had not gone well. This is about your sister's future, my mother says firmly, though I can see the calculation behind her eyes. They'll try to steer the conversation toward Noah's business, as always. I should get to work, I say, gathering my worn backpack. The library study group meets at 11. Then I have a double shift at the catering company. My father nods, approvingly. That's our girl. Such a hard worker, not afraid to start at the bottom. Unlike Noah, who believes he deserves to start at the top, funded by my hard work. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so infuriating. As I head for the door, my phone pings with an email notification. The bank confirming receipt of all my documentation and the appointment with Mr. Kennedy. Everything is set for Monday. Morning's financial reckoning. Don't forget we need you home by 9 tonight, my mother calls after me. We're having a strategy session for Noah's investor meeting. Strategy session. Their code for, we need to convince you to sign over more money. Wouldn't miss it, I call back, stepping out into the morning sunshine. Little do they know, I have a strategy session of my own planned. One that will end their unauthorized access to my finances forever. I pause on our front walkway, looking back at our upper-middle-class home with its carefully maintained facade, so much like my parents' carefully maintained illusion of financial propriety. By Monday afternoon, both facades will be permanently altered. My phone rings as I reach the sidewalk. It's Grandpa. Everything set for Operation Wake Up Call? He asks without preamble. Just as planned, I confirm, walking toward the bus. Stop. Bank meeting Monday morning. Family dinner tomorrow night. They're planning to empty the final $7,000 first thing Monday. And you've documented everything? The transactions, the conversations, their signatures on withdrawal slips? 6 months' worth, I assure him. Mrs. Patel says it's the most comprehensive evidence she's seen in 15 years of handling these cases. He chuckles, a sound like dry leaves rustling. They always did underestimate you. Too busy inflating your brother's ego to notice your brains. Their mistake, I say, watching the bus approach. And a costly one at that, Grandpa agrees. See you tomorrow night, kiddo. I wouldn't miss this show for the world. As I board the bus heading toward campus, I review my meticulous plan one more time. Every detail accounted for, every contingency considered. Years of being overlooked, months of gathering evidence, and now just hours away from finally being seen. Sunday dinner is going to be a financial revelation my family never expected. But first, I have studying to do and tables to wait, because unlike some people in my family, I actually earn my money before spending it. The library is quiet. On Saturday morning, just a handful of dedicated students scattered among the wooden tables and study carrels. I claim my usual spot by the tall windows overlooking the campus quad, spreading out my accounting textbooks and color-coded notes. For 3 hours, I lose myself in depreciation schedules and tax codes, the world of numbers and regulations that has always made perfect sense to me. Unlike family dynamics, financial principles follow consistent rules. Money doesn't play favorites. At 2 p.m., my phone vibrates with a text from Kaylee. Meeting you at Java Junction in 15. Brought the paperwork from Kevin. Kevin, Kaylee's boyfriend, works at a law firm that specializes in financial malfeasance. He's been an invaluable resource, reviewing my evidence and confirming what Grandpa and I suspected. My parents' actions constitute financial fraud, plain and simple. I pack up my study materials, nodding goodbye to the librarian who knows me by name after countless weekends spent here instead of participating in strategic planning sessions for Noah's businesses. Outside, autumn leaves swirl across the concrete paths between campus buildings. The coffee shop sits just off campus, a cozy refuge of mismatched furniture and strong espresso. Kaylee waves from our usual corner booth, 2 steaming mugs already on the table. Her bright blue hair and multiple earrings make her stand out in our conservative suburban community, one of many reasons we bonded freshman year of high school. While I've been fighting my battle with quiet calculation, Kaylee's approach to life's unfairness has always been more direct. "You ready for Operation Family Smackdown?" she asks as I slide into the booth. "Just about," I say, reaching for the manila envelope she pushes across the table. "Is this Kevin's legal assessment?" "Yep." His exact words were textbook case of financial fraud with compelling documentary evidence. She sips her coffee, eyes sparkling with anticipation. "He says you've built a better case than most prosecutors he knows." I open the envelope, scanning Kevin's detailed notes. His assessment confirms what I've been building toward. Not only can the bank freeze the accounts and launch an investigation, but my parents could potentially face criminal charges. "I don't want them arrested," I clarify, looking up from the papers. "I just want my money back and for them to stop treating me like Noah's personal ATM." Kaylee nods, understanding as always. Kevin included options for different outcomes, everything from full prosecution to mediated settlement. I tuck the documents into my backpack, next to the expandable file containing 6 months of meticulously organized evidence. Bank statements, withdrawal slips with forged signatures, recorded conversations about temporary loans from my account, and screenshots of Noah's extravagant purchases timed perfectly with money disappearing from my savings. "How's the secret account looking?" Kaylee asks, lowering her voice despite the ambient coffee shop noise. $12,438.27, I reply precisely. All earned from catering, tutoring, and the online bookkeeping work. All completely separate from the account they've been draining. And they have no idea it exists? I shake my head. They think every penny I earn goes into the family account. They don't even know I've been working the online bookkeeping job for the past year. My phone buzzes with a text from my mother. "Need you to stop at the store for dinner ingredients. Also, your brother needs help organizing receipts for his investor meeting. Be home by 5. I show Kaylee the message, and she rolls her eyes dramatically. Translation: "Be our errand girl and do your brother's basic adult responsibilities for him." "Pretty much," I agree, typing back a simple "okay" that my mother will interpret as compliance rather than acknowledgement. "You never did tell me how your parents justified taking your college money in the first place," Kaylee says, finishing her coffee. I mean, what was their excuse? I've never shared the full story with anyone except Grandpa, but with everything coming to a head, it feels right to finally explain. "It started small, 2 years ago," I begin, staring into my coffee cup. "Right after I got the scholarship offer from State University. Noah's hot sauce company was on the verge of a major distribution deal, but he needed $2,000 for product development. I remember that family meeting clearly, my parents sitting me down, explaining that my college fund wouldn't be necessary now that I had a scholarship. Wouldn't it make sense to help Noah achieve his dreams? They called it reallocating family resources toward the highest potential return," I continue. "My dad actually used a whiteboard to show how Noah's business would grow exponentially, eventually paying for graduate school at an Ivy League university if I wanted it." Kaylee snorts. "And the hot sauce business lasted what, 3 months? 4. But by then, they'd already moved another $5,000 for his cryptocurrency consulting startup. Each time there was a family meeting, a presentation about how they were actually helping secure my future, and the implication that I should be grateful for the opportunity to support Noah's brilliance. And they needed your permission because technically, the account was in my name with them as custodians until I turned 21. But they found ways around that. Dad would bring paperwork for me to sign, college applications, scholarship forms, insurance documents, and slip in withdrawal authorizations. Mom would distract me with questions about classes while Dad processed the transfers online. Kaylee's expression darkens. "That's not just unfair. That's straight-up fraud." "I know," I say quietly. "I realized what was happening about 6 months ago, when I overheard them talking about needing another installment from my account for Noah's new business. I started paying attention, documenting everything. When I saw Noah's new MacBook Pro, right after they told me we couldn't afford the $800 for my statistics class, something just snapped inside. So you went to the bank? I nod. First to Mrs. Patel, who confirmed my suspicions and helped me set up the secret account. Then to Grandpa, who connected me with his friend at the regional bank office. My phone buzzes again, a series of increasingly demanding texts from my mother about grocery items and Noah's receipt organization system. I silence the notifications. And tomorrow night is the big reveal, Kaylee says, a hint of admiration in her voice. Family dinner with Grandpa as witness. Just phase 1, I correct her. Tomorrow I let them know that I'm aware of what they've been doing. Monday morning is when the real consequences begin, when they try to withdraw the final $7,000 and find the account frozen pending fraud investigation. Kaylee reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. You've built an airtight case. You know that, right? Mrs. Patel, Grandpa, Kevin, they're all saying the same thing. Your parents can't talk their way out of this one. They'll try, I say, gathering my things as I check the time. They're experts at reframing reality to justify whatever benefits Noah. That's why documentation has been so critical. No gaslighting, no emotional manipulation, just the cold, hard numbers. Outside the coffee shop, the afternoon sun casts long shadows across the campus paths. I have just enough time to catch the bus to my catering job, a wedding reception at the country club where my mother ironically wanted to host a launch party for Noah's dog bandana business last month until I pointed out the $12,000 rental fee. Text me after the dinner tomorrow? Kaylee asks as we part ways at the bus stop. Absolutely, though the real fireworks won't start until Monday morning. I still can't believe they thought they'd get away with it. Kaylee shakes her head, taking money from their own daughter to fund their son's vanity projects. They thought I wouldn't notice, I say, spotting my bus approaching. Or, if I did notice, that I wouldn't understand. And if I understood, that I wouldn't have the courage to confront them. Their mistake, Kaylee calls as I board the bus. And a $35,000 one at that, I reply through the closing doors. The bus rumbles toward downtown, and I use the ride to review my timeline once more. Sunday dinner, the revelation. Monday morning, the formal investigation. Monday afternoon, the reckoning. I think about the stunned expression that will cross my father's face when he realizes I've known all along, the excuses my mother will try to make, the indignation Noah will express at having his financial lifeline questioned. For years, I've been the quiet one, the responsible one, the one they could count on not to make waves, the perfect mark for their systematic financial exploitation. They never considered that those same qualities, attention to detail, patience, responsibility, would become the tools of their undoing. My phone buzzes with a notification from the bank app, an alert that someone has logged into my account. I open it immediately, watching in real time as my father reviews the balance, no doubt planning how to allocate the remaining $7,000 toward Noah's investor meeting preparations. Little does he know that money will never reach Noah's hands. By this time Monday, my parents will be sitting across from Mr. Kennedy, the bank's regional manager, explaining why they've been making unauthorized withdrawals from their daughter's education fund. The bus reaches my stop, and I disembark near the gleaming country club where wealthy families host their celebrations. I straighten my catering uniform as I approach the service entrance, mentally shifting gears from avenging daughter to professional server. For 8 hours, I'll carry trays and pour champagne, earning an honest dollar unlike certain members of my family. And with each tip added to my hidden account, I'll be one step closer to true financial independence, the kind that no one, not even well-meaning parents with a golden child fixation, can compromise. Tomorrow's family dinner will be the appetizer. Monday's bank meeting will be the main course. And financial justice long overdue will be the sweetest dessert of all. By the time I return home from the catering job, it's nearly midnight. The house is quiet except for the glow of my father's office light spilling into the hallway. I pause outside the partially open door, hearing the tap of keyboard keys and the occasional mouse click. Curiosity pulls me closer. I peer through, the crack to see my father hunched over his computer, several browser tabs open, my bank account statement, a luxury office furniture website, and what appears to be flight information. The family financial wizard, hard at work allocating my education fund toward Noah's business fantasies. I clear my throat softly. Working late? He startles, quickly minimizing the bank website. Just some research for Noah's investor meeting Monday. He swivels in his chair, adjusting his reading glasses. How was the catering gig? Profitable, I answer truthfully. The couple tipped well. His expression brightens. That's my girl. Every little bit helps, right? He gestures vaguely toward his computer screen. Family investments require everyone's contribution. Family investments. The euphemism tastes bitter now. Speaking of contributions, I venture carefully, I noticed there was another withdrawal from my account yesterday. For the MacBook? A flicker of something, guilt, annoyance, crosses his face before settling back into practiced explanation mode. Just a temporary reallocation, honey. Noah needs proper equipment to present professionally. First impressions are everything in business. Right. I nod as if this makes perfect sense. And the previous withdrawals for the office space rental, the marketing materials, the business trips to New York and Miami, all temporary reallocations? He removes his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. It's complicated, sweetheart. Business requires investment capital. Your brother has tremendous potential. I understand. I interrupt gently. I'm studying business administration. Remember? Community college courses. He dismisses with a wave. Noah's operating in the real world, making connections with actual entrepreneurs. The condescension would sting if I hadn't been expecting it. Instead, I simply nod again. Well, I just wanted to check about tomorrow's dinner. Grandpa confirmed. He's coming. My father's posture stiffens slightly. What exactly prompted this financial discussion you want to have? Is something wrong? Not wrong, I assure him with a small smile. Just some ideas I'd like to share about my future plans. He visibly relaxes. Well, that's fine then. Though with your current trajectory, community college followed by local employment seems most practical. We'll discuss all the options tomorrow, I say, turning to leave. Good night, Dad. Good night, Princess. He's already turning back to the computer, unaware that I lingered just long enough to see him reopen my bank account information. In my bedroom, I carefully document this interaction in the detailed journal I've been keeping. Every conversation, every dismissal, every financial decision made without my true consent. The journal is both therapeutic and evidentiary, a record of systematic financial exploitation wrapped in parental authority. I review tomorrow's plan once more before sleep. Dinner at 6. Grandpa arriving at 5:30 for our pre-meeting strategy session. Evidence folder discreetly placed in the sideboard drawer for easy access when needed. Morning arrives with the hushed energy of anticipation. Sunday in our household typically revolves around Noah's schedule. Today, he's sleeping in after what my mother describes as an intense brainstorming session that apparently required him to stay out until 3 a.m. with his friends. I use the quiet hours to finalize my preparation. In my room, I organize the key documents for tonight's discussion. Bank statements highlighting unauthorized withdrawals, a spreadsheet tracking Noah's purchases made with my money, and printed screenshots of text conversations where my parents discussed accessing my funds without my knowledge. At precisely 10 a.m., my phone rings. Mr. Kennedy from the regional bank. Ms. Calloway, I wanted to confirm our meeting for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. His deep voice is reassuringly professional. Yes, I'll be there, I confirm. And you've reviewed all the documentation I provided? Thoroughly, he assures me. I've also spoken with Mrs. Patel and your grandfather. The evidence of unauthorized access is substantial. And the account freeze? Already programmed into the system. The moment anyone attempts to access those funds tomorrow morning, the freeze will activate and notification will be sent to my office. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Ms. Calloway? He adds before hanging up. If I may say so, the meticulous nature of your documentation is impressive. You have a future in financial forensics if you're interested. The validation from a banking professional sends a small thrill through me. This is what my parents have never understood. My methodical nature isn't a limitation. It's a strength. One they're about to encounter head-on. Downstairs, Sunday brunch preparation is underway. My mother hums as she chops vegetables for omelets, pausing to glance my way. There you are. Perfect timing. Could you run to the store? We're out of Noah's favorite cheese for the omelets, and he'll be up soon. Of course. Heaven forbid Noah eat a breakfast without his specific imported cheese. Sure, I agree easily. Need anything else? She hands me a list. 11 items, all Noah's preferences for either breakfast or tonight's dinner. And pick up some sparkling cider for tonight. Your grandfather doesn't drink wine, and we should make this special. The unspoken message is clear. Make things nice for Grandpa so he'll be receptive to whatever financial scheme they plan to propose. Little do they know, Grandpa has been my strategic partner in this entire plan. At the grocery store, I take my time, enjoying what might be my last errand as the family's compliant daughter. By tomorrow afternoon, everything will be different. Either my parents will acknowledge their wrongdoing and begin making amends, or our relationship will fundamentally change as legal and financial consequences unfold. My phone buzzes with a text from Noah. Hey sis, can you grab my dry cleaning while you're out? Need my good suit for tomorrow's investor meeting. Put it on your card and I'll totally pay you back when this deal comes through. Another financial request. Another promise of future repayment that will never materialize. I screenshot it, adding it to my evidence folder under Continued Financial Exploitation, Post-Investigation Initiation. Sorry, don't have my card with me, I text back. A small lie, but a necessary boundary. His response is immediate and predictable. Mom says you should always carry emergency money. This is an emergency. 3 exclamation points. The trademark of entitled urgency. Ask Mom or Dad to get it, I suggest reasonably. They're busy preparing for tonight. Just help out for once. 4 exclamation points now, his indignation growing. I silence my phone, continuing through my shopping list with methodical efficiency. By the time I return home, Noah is at the kitchen island, dramatically describing his networking breakthrough from last night to our mother, who listens with rapt attention. And then the regional sales director for luxury pet accessories said he'd never seen such a comprehensive approach to the pet bandana space. Noah gestures expansively, nearly knocking over his coffee mug. We're talking potential 6-figure distribution deal. I just need to nail Monday's presentation. My mother notices me entering with grocery bags. Did you get Noah's dry cleaning? I didn't have my card, I explain, unpacking groceries. You could have called us, my father interjects from behind his newspaper at the dining table. This meeting is critically important. Speaking of important meetings, I redirect smoothly. What time should I tell Grandpa to arrive for dinner? My mother checks the lasagna preparations. 6 should be fine, though I'm still not entirely clear on why he's coming or what this financial discussion is about. The perfect opening. I've been thinking about my educational path, I begin, carefully. About the original plans for my college fund and how they've changed over the past 2 years. A loaded silence fills the kitchen. My parents exchange quick glances, the silent communication of conspirators realizing their scheme might be questioned. Changes are normal in any financial plan, my father says dismissively. Family resources shift based on evolving opportunities. Exactly, I agree pleasantly. And I'd like to discuss those shifts with everyone present. Transparency is important in financial planning, isn't it? Another silent exchange between my parents. My mother laughs nervously. Sweetie, there's no need to bother your grandfather with basic household budgeting. Oh, but Grandpa's quite interested, I counter, arranging groceries in the refrigerator with deliberate care. Especially in educational funding. He was asking about my college savings just last week. My father folds his newspaper with a sharp snap. Your grandfather tends to have outdated ideas about financial management. The modern economy requires agility, investment in entrepreneurial ventures. Like Noah's businesses, I finish for him. That's exactly what I want to discuss. The family's investment strategy regarding Noah's ventures versus my education. Noah finally glances up from his phone, sensing the tension. What's the big deal? When my business takes off, there'll be plenty of money for everyone. That's right, my mother jumps in too quickly. This isn't about taking from one child to give to another. It's about maximizing family potential. Then you won't mind discussing it openly, I say with finality. At dinner, with Grandpa, 6 o'clock. I exit the kitchen before they can. Object further, feeling their stunned silence behind me. For perhaps the first time in our family dynamic, I've set the agenda rather than following theirs. Upstairs in my room, I send a quick update to Grandpa. Stage 1 complete. They're nervous but don't suspect the full extent. Dinner at 6. His reply comes moments later. Proud of you, kiddo. The reckoning is long overdue. I move to my window, gazing out at the suburban street below. Somewhere in this neighborhood, other families are having normal Sunday afternoons, watching sports, doing homework, preparing meals together, not orchestrating financial interventions to stop. Parental fraud. Tomorrow, my parents will attempt to withdraw the final $7,000 from my account. Tomorrow, the bank will freeze everything pending investigation. Tomorrow, years of financial manipulation will face professional scrutiny rather than familial acceptance. But first, tonight's dinner. The appetizer before tomorrow's main course of consequences. I check my watch. 6 hours until Grandpa arrives. 7 hours until dinner begins. 18 hours until my parents attempt to access my account for the last time. The countdown to financial justice continues its steady, unstoppable tick. The E. Hours before dinner unfold in a choreographed dance of domestic tension. My mother attacks lasagna preparation with aggressive efficiency, periodically sending me pointed looks that oscillate between suspicion and concern. My father makes 3 separate business calls in his office, voice deliberately lowered, likely conferring with his financial advisor friends about how to handle my sudden interest in my own money. Noah alternates between styling his hair for an unnecessary amount of time and lounging on the couch, scrolling through social media while loudly announcing potential business collaborations with influencers. At precisely 5:25 p.m., I slip out the front door under the pretense of checking the mailbox. Instead, I wait at the curb for Grandpa's immaculately maintained vintage Cadillac. Right on schedule, it purrs around the corner at 5:28, its metallic blue finish gleaming in the early evening sun. Grandpa Harold Calloway has never been one for lateness or disorder. At 78, he maintains the crisp efficiency of his 40 years as an accountant. From his precisely knotted tie to his leather briefcase that contains, I know for certain, a meticulously organized file about my financial situation. Ready for battle, General? He asks as I open his car door, his blue eyes twinkling with the same strategic sharpness I'd like to think I inherited. Command center secured, I confirm with our prearranged code, meaning I've placed all necessary documentation within easy reach in the dining room. Opposition is nervous but unsuspecting. He chuckles, retrieving his briefcase before offering me his arm for the walk to the front door. Your grandmother would be proud, he says quietly. she never did approve of how they favor that boy. The mention of Grandma, gone 3 years now, strengthens my resolve. She was the one who first suggested setting aside money for my education, back when I was still in elementary school, bringing home perfect math scores while Noah was being celebrated for simply completing his homework. I ring the doorbell rather than using my key, a small power move that forces my parents to receive us formally rather than having me simply usher Grandpa in like a delivery. My father opens the door, surprise registering briefly at seeing us, standing together like colleagues rather than just grandfather and granddaughter. "Dad, you're early," he says, shooting me a quick look of annoyance. "Precisely on time, Richard," Grandpa corrects, checking his vintage watch. 5:30, as arranged with my granddaughter. The emphasis on my granddaughter doesn't go unnoticed. My father's smile tightens as he steps aside to let us enter. "Mom's just finishing up in the kitchen," he explains, leading us to the living room where Noah sprawls across the main sofa, still scrolling on his phone. "Harold!" My mother calls too brightly from the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. "What a lovely surprise to have you join us on a Sunday." "Hardly a surprise when I was explicitly invited," Grandpa replies placidly, settling into his favorite armchair, the one that, I notice with satisfaction, Noah has been forced to vacate. Noah barely looks up, offering a distracted, "Hey, Gramps," before returning to his phone, likely documenting his entrepreneurial lifestyle for social media followers who have no idea his business ventures exist primarily in his imagination. And my depleted bank account. "Drink, Dad?" my father offers, already moving to the liquor cabinet. "Sparkling water," Grandpa replies. "I prefer full clarity of mind when discussing financial matters." Another subtle power move. My parents exchange quick glances. "Speaking of finances," my mother interjects with forced casualness, "Noah was just telling us about a promising investor meeting tomorrow. Perhaps he could share some details over dinner." "Actually," I speak up, "tonight's discussion is specifically about my educational funding, as I mentioned earlier." The room temperature seems to drop several degrees. My father pauses mid-pour of his own scotch. "Of course, honey." He recovers smoothly. "Though family finances are interconnected, as you know, Noah's business prospects directly impact all our futures." "Interesting perspective," Grandpa muses, accepting the sparkling water I bring him. "I'm curious to hear more about these interconnections." The next 20 minutes pass in a surreal blend of small talk and strategic positioning. My mother makes multiple unnecessary trips between kitchen and dining room, rearranging place settings and adding flourishes to the table as if a perfectly presented meal might somehow offset the impending financial discussion. My father attempts to steer conversation toward safe topics: neighborhood gossip, an upcoming golf tournament, the weather forecast, while Noah periodically interjects with pronouncements about disrupting the pet accessory space that nobody requested. At 6:15, we finally sit down to dinner. I've orchestrated the seating strategically. Grandpa at one end of the table, myself beside him, my parents across from us, and Noah at the far end where his inevitable interruptions will be less disruptive. My mother serves the lasagna with shaking hands, ladling extra portions onto Noah's plate while shooting nervous glances at Grandpa. My father pours wine for the adults except Grandpa, who raises his sparkling water in a mock toast. "To family. Transparency," he says pointedly. My father nearly chokes on his first sip of wine. "So," my mother begins with bright desperation, "Noah, why don't you tell Grandpa about your investor meeting tomorrow?" "Mom," I interrupt gently but firmly, "we agreed tonight's discussion would focus on my educational finances." "We can certainly discuss both," my father attempts to compromise, clearly hoping to dilute the conversation I've planned. "Let's start with Rachel's education," Grandpa suggests, wiping his mouth with deliberate precision. "I've been curious about the college fund we established when she was born. The one you assured me would cover a 4-year university education. The silence that follows is deafening. My mother suddenly becomes intensely interested in her lasagna. My father clears his throat twice before responding. Economic realities evolve, Dad. We've had to adapt our financial strategy to accommodate changing circumstances. Which circumstances would those be? I ask innocently, reaching for the folder I'd stashed in the sideboard drawer earlier. My scholarships reducing the need for the fund? Or Noah's business ventures requiring capital? Noah looks up from his phone, which he's been scrolling through even at the dinner table, with sudden attentiveness. Hey, no need to get weird about it, sis. My businesses are investments for the whole family. Interesting choice of words, I say, opening the folder and extracting the first document. A complete history of withdrawals from my college fund, with dates, amounts, and corresponding expense alignment. I've prepared a summary of these family investments over the past 2 years. I slide the document to the center of the table. The color drains from my father's face as he recognizes the bank letterhead. Rachel, my mother begins with a nervous laugh, where did you get this? There's no need for such formality between family. Mrs. Patel at Meridian Credit Union provided it, I explain calmly. She was quite helpful when I inquired about the unusual pattern of withdrawals from my account. You went to the bank? Behind our backs? My father asks, indignation rising in his voice. Behind your backs? Grandpa echoes with raised eyebrows. Interesting characterization of a young woman inquiring about her own finances. It's not that simple, Dad. My father protests, pushing the document away without examining it. As her parents, we have certain authorities regarding... Regarding what, exactly? I interject, pulling out the second document. A copy of the account establishment terms, with key sections highlighted. This clearly states that the account was established for my educational expenses, with parental access solely for purpose-appropriate withdrawals until I reach age 21. My mother's hand trembles as she reaches for her wine glass. Sweetie, you're taking this too literally. Family finances require flexibility. Is that what you call this? I ask, presenting the third document, a spreadsheet correlating withdrawals from my account with Noah's purchases and business expenses. The $3,200 withdrawal for Noah's MacBook? The $5,500 for his office space rental? The $4,700 for his trip to the Miami Business Conference that coincidentally aligned with spring break? Noah shifts uncomfortably in his seat. That was a legitimate business expense. I made important connections. With social media influencers at beach parties, I finish for him, sliding across printed screenshots from his own Instagram account. All funded by my college savings. Now wait just a minute, my father interjects, anger replacing his initial shock. We are the parents here. Financial decisions. Fraudulent withdrawals, Grandpa corrects firmly. Misappropriation of designated funds. Unauthorized access to accounts with specific legal parameters. Harold, please, my mother pleads, tears forming. We were only trying to support both our children's futures. Noah's businesses have genuine potential. After 3 failures in 2 years? I challenge quietly. The hot sauce company, the cryptocurrency consulting, and now dog accessories? All funded with my education money while you told me to consider community college because we need to be realistic about finances? The silence that follows is broken only by Noah's indignant huffing and my father's increasingly agitated finger-tapping against his wine glass. What exactly are you suggesting? He finally demands. I slide the final document across the table, a formal letter from Mr. Kennedy at the regional bank, confirming my Monday morning appointment. I'm not suggesting anything, I say evenly. I'm informing you that tomorrow morning, representatives from Meridian Credit Union's Fraud Investigation Department would like to discuss the $35,000 withdrawn from my education fund over the past 2 years. They're particularly interested in these withdrawal slips with signatures that don't match my handwriting. My mother gasps. My father's face turns from red to ashen gray. Noah, finally grasping the gravity of the situation, explodes. This is ridiculous. You're seriously going to report our parents to the bank? Over helping me build a future? Not your future, I correct him. Your third consecutive business failure, funded by my sacrificed education. Grandpa places a steadying hand on my arm, then addresses my stunned parents. You have exactly one opportunity to handle this correctly, he says, his voice carrying the weight of moral authority that has always made my father shrink slightly. Tomorrow morning, you will accompany Rachel to the bank. You will acknowledge the unauthorized withdrawals. You will establish a repayment plan for the full $35,000. Or, he pauses for effect, the bank's fraud investigation will proceed with all attendant consequences. My father finds his voice, though it cracks slightly. You're bluffing. They wouldn't press charges against parents making decisions for their child. I shake my head. I'm not a child. I'm 20 years old, and according to account terms, these were unauthorized withdrawals for non-educational purposes. Mrs. Patel and Mr. Kennedy both confirmed this constitutes actionable fraud. And before you get any ideas, Grandpa adds, sliding another document forward, I've been appointed as Rachel's financial advocate. Any attempt to access those accounts tonight or before tomorrow's meeting will trigger immediate intervention. For perhaps the first time in his life, Noah appears speechless, staring at the documentation with dawning comprehension that his funding source has not only dried up, but might actually result in serious consequences for our parents. My mother begins to cry in earnest now. We were just trying to give both our children opportunities. Noah's businesses needed startup capital. And Rachel's education didn't matter? Grandpa challenges. 4 years at university wasn't an opportunity. Worth protecting? The lasagna sits forgotten as my carefully constructed case dismantles years of financial manipulation. Sunday dinner has become exactly what I planned, the opening statement in a long overdue reckoning. And tomorrow morning at the bank will be the verdict. The remainder of dinner unfolds like a psychological thriller, tense silence punctuated by desperate attempts to regain control of a situation spiraling beyond my parents' grasp. Rachel, my father finally says, pushing his plate away untouched. This is completely unnecessary. If you had concerns about the account, you could have simply discussed them with us. I did, I reply calmly. 3 times in the past year. Each time you explained that the withdrawals were temporary and would be replaced when Noah's business took off. And they will be, Noah interjects, desperation edging his voice. The pet accessory line is about to explode. The investor. Meeting tomorrow? Is that why you were planning to withdraw the remaining $7,000 from my account tomorrow morning? I ask, sliding my phone across the table to show them the bank alert I'd received. Scheduled withdrawal request, $7,000, pending authorization. My mother gasps softly. My father's face hardens as he realizes how completely I've monitored their activities. How did you get this notification? He demands. It's my account, I remind him. I set up alerts for any access attempts months ago after I realized what was happening. You've been spying on us? Noah asks incredulously. Protecting my finances? I correct him. There's a difference. Grandpa clears his throat. The real question, Richard, is how you justify scheduling another substantial withdrawal after being explicitly confronted about the previous unauthorized transfers. My father shifts uncomfortably, caught in his own trap. The investor meeting requires nothing from Rachel's account, Grandpa finishes firmly. That option is permanently off the table. This is outrageous, my mother suddenly bursts out, tears giving way to indignation. We've sacrificed everything for both our children. Questioning our financial decisions this way is disrespectful and ungrateful. Sacrificed? I echo, struggling to maintain my composure. Like when you told me I couldn't attend the university that offered me a partial scholarship because we just don't have the funds, and while simultaneously transferring $5,500 to Noah's business account for office space he used twice before abandoning. Business involves risk, my father argues defensively. Educational investments are different. Exactly, I agree. My education fund was explicitly designated for university expenses, not for Noah's third consecutive business failure. Noah slams his hand on the table, rattling the dishes. Stop calling them failures. They're learning experiences. Every successful entrepreneur has setbacks. Funded by their own investors or capital, Grandpa points out, not by systematically draining their sister's education fund. A heavy silence blankets the table. My father stares at his wine glass, mind visibly racing through potential escapes from this situation. My mother dabs at her eyes, martyr complex in full display. Noah alternates between sullen glares and panicked, glances at his phone, probably wondering how he'll fund his investor meeting preparations now. What exactly do you want? My father finally asks, his voice low and defeated. Full acknowledgement of the unauthorized withdrawals, I state clearly. A documented repayment plan for the entire $35,000. And complete financial separation going. Why? $35,000? My mother whispers, horrified. We don't have that kind of money just sitting around. You found it when you needed it for Noah's ventures, I point out. The same resourcefulness can be applied to repayment. This will destroy us financially, my father protests. More importantly, my mother adds with a pointed look at Noah, it will kill your brother's business before it can succeed. Noah pales visibly. What about the office lease I just signed? The inventory orders? The marketing agency retainer? Perhaps, Grandpa suggests dryly. You should have considered those obligations before committing funds you didn't actually have. I was counting on family support, Noah explodes. That's what families do. Families don't steal from each other, I counter quietly. They don't systematically undermine one child's future to finance another's fantasies. My father stands abruptly, pacing the dining room with agitated energy. There must be another solution, a compromise. The time for compromise was 2 years ago, I tell him, when you took the first unauthorized withdrawal and I questioned it. Instead, you told me I was too young to understand complex financial strategy, and that I should trust the family financial plan. We are your parents, my mother insists, desperation rising. We were acting in the family's best interests. Were you? Grandpa challenges. Or were you simply favoring one child's ambitions over another's education? The question hangs. In the air, uncomfortable and undeniable. For the first time, I see a flicker of genuine shame cross my father's face. It wasn't like that, he mumbles unconvincingly. The bank statements suggest otherwise, I reply, as does the fact that you hid the withdrawals instead of discussing them openly. Noah pushes his chair back from the table with a screech against the hardwood floor. This is insane! You're acting like Mom and Dad committed some kind of crime. Financial fraud is indeed a crime, Grandpa states matter-of-factly. Unauthorized withdrawals from designated accounts constitute actionable fraud under state banking regulations. You wouldn't really press charges against your own parents, my mother says, horror creeping into her voice as she finally grasps the gravity of the situation. I would prefer not to, I acknowledge, which is why I'm offering an alternative. Acknowledgement, repayment, and financial separation. The choice is yours. My father stops pacing, leaning heavily against the dining room sideboard. And if we refuse? Then tomorrow's bank meeting becomes a formal fraud investigation, I explain calmly. Mr. Kennedy has already reviewed the evidence and confirmed it meets the legal threshold for criminal charges. The silence that follows is deafening. Noah slumps in his chair, the reality of his precarious situation finally sinking in. My mother stares at her hands, tears dripping onto her untouched lasagna. My father seems to have aged 10 years in the past hour, his carefully constructed facade of financial wisdom crumbling before our eyes. I never thought. He begins, then stops, unable to complete the sentence. Never thought I'd notice, I suggest. Never thought I'd understand? Or never thought I'd stand up for myself? Any of it, he admits quietly. You've always been so compliant. The word stings, even though I know it's accurate. I've been the family peacekeeper, the responsible one, the path of least resistance. Until now. Compliance isn't the same as consent, I tell him. I've been documenting everything for 6 months, waiting for this moment. 6 months? My mother echoes weakly. All this time, you've been… what? Spying on us? Recording our conversations? Protecting what's rightfully mine, I correct her. The same way you've protected Noah's interests, just with documentation instead of deception. Noah's phone pings loudly in the tense silence, probably one of his supposed business contacts wondering about tomorrow's plans. He ignores it for once, staring instead at the mountain of evidence laid out on our dining room table. So what? Happens now? He asks, subdued in a way I've rarely seen him. Grandpa glances at his watch. Now, we establish clear terms for tomorrow's meeting. The bank opens at 9 a.m. Rachel's appointment with Mr. Kennedy is at 9:15. I suggest you all arrive by 9, prepared to acknowledge the unauthorized withdrawals and sign a formal repayment agreement. And if we don't, my father challenges, a last flicker of defiance. Then by 9:30, Mr. Kennedy will initiate a formal fraud investigation, I explain. By noon, the bank's legal department will be involved. By end of business day, you could be facing criminal charges. The ultimatum hangs in the air, unambiguous and unavoidable. We need to consult our attorney, my father says, reaching for his phone. By all means, Grandpa agrees pleasantly. Though I suggest you specifically mention the forged signatures on withdrawal slips when explaining the situation. Fraud involving forgery carries particularly significant penalties. My mother makes a small, strangled sound. You can't be serious about this, sis. Noah tries one last angle, his voice dropping into the cajoling tone he uses when trying to charm his way out of consequences. After everything this family has done for you. Like what exactly? I ask, genuine curiosity in my voice. Depleting my education fund? Dismissing my academic achievements? Treating my earnings as family resources while protecting your allowance as untouchable? He has no answer, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I think we're finished here, Grandpa announces, folding his napkin precisely. Richard? Evelyn, I strongly suggest you spend tonight preparing for tomorrow's meeting rather than attempting any further unauthorized access to Rachel's accounts. The freeze is already programmed into the system, and any attempts will only strengthen the case against you. My father nods numbly, financial defeat written in every line of his posture. Rachel will be staying with me tonight, Grandpa continues, to ensure this conversation doesn't escalate inappropriately. My mother looks up sharply. You're taking her away from her home, now? My home is where my belongings are respected, I say quietly, rising from the table. I packed a bag this morning. It's already in Grandpa's car. This final revelation, that I anticipated the need to leave, seems to break something in my mother. She begins to sob openly, all pretense of composure abandoned. We were only trying to help your brother, she manages between sobs. His businesses need capital to succeed. We never meant to get caught, I finish for her. I know. I gather my documentation methodically, returning each paper to its proper folder while my family watches in stunned silence. The careful, Organization is both practical and symbolic, evidence of the methodical mind they've consistently underestimated. 9 o'clock, I remind them, tucking the folder securely under my arm. Meridian Credit Union, Regional Manager's Office. Mr. Kennedy will be expecting all of you. And if we refuse to come? My father asks, one last desperate attempt at regaining control. Grandpa answers for me, his voice carrying decades of authority. Then by noon tomorrow, this family's financial deception becomes a matter of public record in the criminal justice system. Your choice, Richard. As we walk toward the front door, I hear Noah's bewildered voice behind us. But what about my investor meeting? Where am I supposed to get the money now? The question, so perfectly encapsulating the entitled mindset that has defined our family dynamic, follows us into the night, unanswered and increasingly irrelevant. In Grandpa's Cadillac, driving away from the house where financial exploitation masqueraded as family support for years, I finally allow myself a small smile of vindication. Phase 1 complete, I murmur. And quite effectively executed, Grandpa acknowledges, patting my hand. Now get some rest. Tomorrow at the bank is when the real reckoning begins. Grandpa's house smells of cedar and old books, a comforting combination that has always represented safety to me. As a child, I'd escape here during Noah's elaborate birthday parties, or when my parents' focus on his latest achievement became too overwhelming. Tonight, it serves as both sanctuary and war room. Tea? Grandpa offers, settling into his worn leather armchair in the study. A lifetime of financial documentation surrounds us, meticulously labeled filing cabinets, shelves, of accounting references, framed certificates of his decades in financial management. Please, I reply, sinking into the matching chair opposite his. The adrenaline that carried me through dinner is beginning to fade, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. He busies himself with the electric kettle on the side table, a ritual unchanged since Grandma's passing. They'll try to access the account tonight, he predicts, measuring loose tea leaves with practiced precision. I know, I agree. Dad was already texting someone when we left, probably his banking friend at Meridian. Won't help him, Grandpa says confidently. Mr. Kennedy placed the highest security level on the freeze. Even branch managers can't override it without triggering alerts. My phone buzzes with incoming messages, a barrage from my family in various states of emotional distress. From Mom, please call us immediately. We need to discuss this as a family. Your father is devastated. We never meant to hurt you. From Dad, this misunderstanding has gone far enough. Call me immediately. We can resolve this without involving outsiders. From Noah, WTF sis? My investor meeting is tomorrow. You're literally destroying my future over a stupid bank account. Call me now. I silence the notifications, placing the phone face down on the side table. They're already trying damage control. Of course they are, Grandpa hands me a steaming cup of Earl Grey. They've lost control of the narrative. Nothing frightens people like your parents more than that. I sip the tea, letting its warmth spread through my chest. Do you think they'll show up tomorrow? Grandpa considers, this stroking his silver beard thoughtfully. Your father will. His pride won't allow a bank manager to see him as a no-show. Your mother will come because she follows your father's lead in financial matters. Noah? He shrugs. Harder to predict. Depends whether he thinks there's still money to be extracted from the situation. My phone buzzes again, this time with an automated alert from the bank app. Attempted account access detected. Account security protocols activated. I show Grandpa the notification. Right on schedule. Predictable, he nods. Richard never could resist trying to manipulate systems he thinks he understands. Another alert follows moments later. Second unauthorized access attempt detected. Account locked for 12 hours. security notifications sent to primary account holder, and bank security. Impressive security system, Grandpa remarks, approval evident in his voice. Mrs. Patel suggested the enhanced protection package when I first explained my concerns, I explain. She said they've been dealing with more cases of family financial exploitation recently. We sit in companionable silence for several minutes, sipping tea and contemplating tomorrow's confrontation. Outside, rain begins to patter against the windows, nature providing appropriate atmospheric accompaniment to our evening of reckoning. You should try to sleep, Grandpa eventually suggests. Tomorrow requires a clear head. I'm not sure I can, I admit. Everything's been building to this for so long. He nods understanding. Your grandmother was the same way before big confrontations, mind too active to settle. The mention of Grandma brings a lump to my throat. She would have been furious about this, wouldn't she? Apoplectic, Grandpa confirms with a sad smile. She always said the greatest injustice was parents who failed to recognize their children's true potential. She saw yours from the beginning, the careful way you organized your toys, how you'd count and sort your Halloween candy while Noah immediately devoured his. The memory brings a reluctant smile to my face. She taught me to balance my first checkbook when I was 12. And she'd be immensely proud of how you've handled this situation, Grandpa adds. Methodical, evidence-based, and giving them every opportunity to correct course before involving authorities. My phone buzzes yet again, this time with a text from Kaylee. How did dinner go? Revolution or apocalypse? Both, I reply. Multiple meltdowns, staying at Grandpa's. They tried accessing the account twice already. Her response is immediate, not surprised. Want me to meet you at the bank tomorrow for moral support? I consider. This briefly before declining. Better to keep it contained to family. We'll update you after. Grandpa watches me with knowing eyes. Your friend offering reinforcements? She wanted to come to the bank tomorrow, I explain. I think it's better to keep the audience limited. Wise, he agrees. Fewer witnesses means less pride at stake. They might be more reasonable. Reasonable isn't exactly their specialty when it comes to Noah's businesses, I point out. Grandpa's expression darkens. Their blindness regarding that boy has always baffled me. 3 failed ventures in 2 years, and they still believe the next one will be his breakthrough. It's not just blindness, I say quietly. It's active favoritism. They didn't just believe in his businesses. They sacrificed my education to fund them. The greatest mystery is why they thought you wouldn't notice, Grandpa muses. You, of all people, with your attention to detail. They don't really see me, I explain without self-pity, simply stating facts. They see the quiet, compliant daughter who doesn't cause problems. The responsible one who doesn't need attention because she's fine on her own. Their most expensive misconception, Grandpa says with grim satisfaction. My phone lights up with another bank alert. 3rd unauthorized access attempt detected. Security protocol escalated. Regional manager notified. Your father is nothing if not persistent, Grandpa observes. Though not particularly technologically sophisticated. He thinks systems always have backdoors for people with the right connections, I explain. That's how he's operated his entire career, not through exceptional skill, but through relationships. With people who can bend rules. A strategy that fails spectacularly when confronted with proper security protocols and documentation, Grandpa notes with professional satisfaction. A new text appears from Mr. Kennedy. Ms. Calloway, our systems have detected multiple unauthorized access attempts on your account tonight. Enhanced security protocols have been activated. Please confirm you are aware of these attempts and are not the source. I respond immediately. Yes, I'm aware. These are precisely the unauthorized access attempts we discussed. I am not making these attempts. His reply comes seconds later. Documented and added to your case file. We are monitoring in real time. See you tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. The bank is officially documenting their attempts, I tell Grandpa, showing him the exchange. Perfect, he says, setting down his empty teacup. Every failed attempt strengthens your position for tomorrow. I check the time. 10:42 p.m. Less than 11 hours until we confront my parents at the bank. I've prepared a binder for you, Grandpa says, retrieving a leather portfolio from his desk. Key documents arranged in presentation order, with sticky note reminders for each section. I accept the binder, touched by his attention to detail, a family trait that actually serves beneficial purposes in our case. The most important thing tomorrow, he advises, is to maintain your composure regardless of how emotional they become. Financial confrontations often devolve into emotional manipulation, especially in family contexts. I've had years of practice managing their emotional weather patterns, I assure him, especially when Noah's involved. Speaking of your brother, Grandpa says carefully, he may be particularly volatile tomorrow when he realizes his funding source is truly cut off. Noah's never faced real consequences before, I acknowledge. Tomorrow will be a first. Another text arrives from my mother. Rachel, your father is having chest pains. This stress isn't good for his health. Please reconsider what you're doing. To this family. I show Grandpa the message, my hand trembling slightly despite my resolve. Textbook emotional manipulation, he pronounces after reading it. If Richard were truly having medical issues, she'd be calling an ambulance, not texting. Guilt trips. You're right, I agree, steadying myself. It's just another tactic. They'll cycle through several tomorrow, Grandpa warns. Anger, tears, health concerns, appeals to family loyalty, attempts to minimize or rationalize, the full spectrum of avoidance techniques. I'm prepared, I assure him, though the knot in my stomach suggests a sliver of doubt. You are? He confirms with absolute confidence. You've prepared more thoroughly for this confrontation than most lawyers do for court cases. One final bank alert illuminates my phone. Account access temporarily suspended until in-person verification with photo ID and security questions. Appointment scheduled, 9:15 a.m. with Regional Manager Kennedy. That should end tonight's access. Attempts, I observe with grim satisfaction. Get some rest, Grandpa suggests again, rising stiffly from his chair. Tomorrow requires strength and clarity. Your grandmother's room is ready for you. Fresh sheets and extra blankets if the rain brings a chill. I stand, embracing him impulsively. Thank you for everything. No thanks needed, he says gruffly, patting my back. Standing up for what's right is its own reward. Financial justice doubly so. In Grandma's old room, surrounded by her quilts and watercolor landscapes, I review the binder Grandpa prepared. Each section meticulously organized, each document positioned for maximum impact. Withdrawal records, forged signatures, account terms, bank communications, and finally, the formal complaint forms ready for signature if my parents refuse to acknowledge their actions. Outside, the rain intensifies, drumming against the roof in a soothing rhythm. I set 3 alarms, though I suspect sleep will be elusive. In less than 9 hours, I'll be sitting across from Mr. Kennedy at Meridian Credit Union, waiting to see if my parents choose accountability or further denial. Either way, by this time tomorrow, the financial exploitation that has defined our family dynamic for years will be permanently altered. The only question is whether our family relationships will survive the reckoning. My final thought before drifting into uneasy sleep is of the bank statements spread across the dining table, evidence of years of systematic betrayal, and the stunned expressions as my parents realized their financially naive daughter had documented every unauthorized withdrawal with forensic precision. Tomorrow, those expressions will transform into something else entirely when they face the regional bank manager and the full consequences of their actions. Morning arrives with steel gray skies and persistent rain, weather that matches the gravity of the day ahead. I wake before my alarms, having slept fitfully between anxious dreams of confrontation and reconciliation. Grandpa is already in the kitchen when I descend, dressed in what I recognize as his professional meeting attire: charcoal suit, burgundy tie, polished Oxfords. Bank clothes, I observe, accepting the mug of coffee he offers. He nods approvingly. At my own outfit, a modest navy dress with a tailored blazer, the most formal ensemble I own. Presentation matters in financial confrontations. Authority is partially visual. I borrowed Grandma's pearls, I add, touching the simple strand at my neck. Seemed appropriate somehow. She'd approve, Grandpa confirms, his voice softening. She always said pearls communicate both femininity and strength. We eat breakfast in companionable silence, toast and fruit arranged with the precision that defines Grandpa's approach to life. At 8:15, my phone buzzes with a text from Mrs. Patel. Mr. Kennedy is already in the office preparing for your 9:15 meeting. Everything is ready. At 8:20, a more surprising notification appears. An email from my father's account with an attached document labeled Settlement Proposal. I open it warily. They're offering a payment plan, I tell Grandpa, scanning the attachment. $5,000 immediately and $500 monthly until the debt is cleared. Grandpa peers over my shoulder at the document. Convenient timing. What conditions are attached? I continue reading, my suspicions confirmed with each paragraph. I would need to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the misunderstanding, withdraw any complaints with the bank, and agree not to pursue any claims of impropriety. Essentially, they want to buy your silence and avoid bank scrutiny, Grandpa summarizes, his expression hardening. For less than the full amount they took, stretched over 5 years of payments they could easily default on once the pressure is off. And there's a separate section about how I should understand that family financial matters are complex, and that their decisions were made with the entire family's best interests in mind, I add, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Classic minimization strategy, Grandpa notes. Reframe theft as complex financial management too sophisticated for you to understand. I close the document without responding, gathering my materials for the meeting. At 8:30, we load into Grandpa's Cadillac, the leather binder of evidence secured in my lap like precious cargo. The drive to Meridian Credit Union takes exactly 17 minutes through the rain-slicked streets of our suburban town. We arrive at 8:47, parking in a visitor spot with a clear view of the entrance. We'll wait here until they arrive, Grandpa decides, keeping the engine running for heat. No sense giving them home field advantage by being inside first. Sure enough, at 8:53, my father's silver BMW pulls into the parking lot, followed immediately by a rideshare vehicle that deposits Noah at the curb, looking uncharacteristically subdued in what appears to be yesterday's clothes. Interesting, Grandpa murmurs. They didn't drive together. Mom and Dad probably spent the night strategizing while Noah was busy panic-calling his business contacts to explain his investor meeting might be delayed, I speculate. We watch, as my parents and brother converge at the bank entrance, none of them looking particularly rested. My father's normally immaculate appearance shows signs of hasty preparation, slightly askew tie, hair not perfectly combed. My mother clutches her designer handbag like a shield, eyes darting nervously around the parking lot. Noah keeps checking his phone, his usual swagger replaced by agitated movements. Ready? Grandpa asks as the family trio disappears into the bank. I take a deep breath, centering myself for what's to come. Ready. The bank's interior is hushed and formal, potted plants and mahogany desks creating an atmosphere of financial respectability. Mrs. Patel spots us immediately, offering a subtle nod of encouragement as she directs us toward the executive offices in the back. My family waits in a glass-walled conference room, their tense body language visible even from a distance. My Father stands rigidly by the window. My mother perches on the edge of a chair, and Noah slouches against the wall, still fixated on his phone. Mr. Kennedy emerges from his office to greet us, his tailored suit and silver hair projecting exactly the image of financial authority that my father has always aspired to. "Ms. Calloway," he says, shaking my hand firmly. "Mr. Calloway, thank you for your punctuality. I've reviewed all the documentation again this morning, and everything is in order for our discussion." "Were there any additional access attempts overnight?" I ask quietly. "4 more between midnight and 4 a.m., he confirms, all documented and added to the file. My father's expression when we enter the conference room is a complex mixture of defensiveness, anger, and, most surprisingly, fear. Real fear, not the manufactured concern he typically displays when trying to manipulate a situation. "Rachel," my mother begins immediately, rising from her chair with outstretched arms as if this were a family reunion rather than a financial confrontation. "Sweetie, we've been so worried. Your father barely slept." I maintain professional distance, placing my evidence binder on the conference table. "Good morning, Mom, Dad, Noah." My brother barely grunts acknowledgement, his attention still primarily on his phone. "This is completely unnecessary," my father states flatly, gesturing at the formal bank setting. "We sent you a very reasonable settlement proposal this morning." "Which I reviewed and found inadequate," I respond calmly, taking a seat across from them. "Mr. Kennedy has agreed to facilitate today's discussion regarding the unauthorized withdrawals from my account." "Alleged unauthorized withdrawals," my father corrects sharply. Mr. Kennedy clears his throat. "Actually, Mr. Calloway, the bank's records clearly indicate 37 separate withdrawals over a 20-month period, totaling $35,000. Multiple withdrawals show signature discrepancies that our fraud department has flagged as concerning." My mother's nervous laugh fills the silence that follows. "This is all just a misunderstanding between family members. Surely the bank doesn't need to be involved in private financial arrangements. When those arrangements involve potentially fraudulent access to designated accounts, the bank has both a legal and ethical obligation to investigate," Mr. Kennedy explains with practiced patience, "particularly when the account in question was specifically established as an educational trust with clear usage parameters." My father shifts strategies immediately, his tone becoming conciliatory. "Rachel, honey, we understand you're upset about some of the financial decisions we've made. That's why we offered the repayment plan this morning. There's no need for all this. A formality. The formality exists because informal discussions have repeatedly failed," I explain evenly. 3 times in the past year, I've asked about withdrawals from my account. Each time I was told they were temporary and would be replaced. None have been. "Business investments take time to mature," Noah suddenly interjects, finally looking up from his phone. "My dog accessory line is about to take off. The investor meeting today has been postponed." My father cuts him off with a warning. "Glance, we need to resolve this family matter first." Mr. Kennedy opens a folder containing copies of the documentation I had previously provided. "Let's establish some facts to guide our discussion. The account in question was opened 18 years ago by Harold Calloway." He nods respectfully toward Grandpa. "With explicit designation as an educational fund for Rachel Calloway. The terms specified that funds were to be used exclusively for educational expenses, with parental access granted solely for education-related withdrawals until the beneficiary reached age 21. My father begins to interrupt, but Mr. Kennedy raises a hand to continue. "Beginning in January of last year, a pattern of withdrawals commenced that do not align with educational expenses. Bank records indicate these funds were transferred to accounts belonging to Noah Calloway, or businesses registered under his name. Documentation provided by Ms. Calloway demonstrates that these transfers coincide with purchases of business equipment, office space rental, and business travel that cannot reasonably be classified as educational expenses for Rachel Calloway. My mother begins to cry softly, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. We were trying to secure opportunities for both our children. Noah's businesses will benefit the entire family when they succeed. That was never the account's designated purpose, Grandpa states firmly, and such decisions required the beneficiaries' informed consent, which was never properly obtained. Rachel knew about the transfers, my father insists. We discussed them as a family. After they had already occurred, I counter. And when I questioned them, I was told they were temporary and would be replaced when Noah's businesses succeeded. None of the funds have been returned. We sent you a repayment proposal this morning, my father reiterates, frustration edging his voice, which offered less than the full amount taken and required me to sign away my rights regarding the improper withdrawals, I point out. Noah slams his phone down on the conference table, startling everyone. This is ridiculous. We're family. Families share resources. My businesses are investments for everyone's future. Then why weren't they funded from your parents' accounts? Grandpa asks mildly. Why specifically from Rachel's education fund? The question hangs in the air, unanswerable without admitting the fundamental inequity at the heart of our family's financial dynamics. Mr. Kennedy tactfully redirects the conversation. The immediate issue before us is how to address the unauthorized withdrawals and establish appropriate financial boundaries going forward. I see 3 potential paths forward. He raises one finger. First, a formal acknowledgement of improper withdrawals with a structured repayment plan for the full $35,000, plus the implementation of enhanced account security measures. A second finger joins the first. Second, if agreement cannot be reached, the bank is obligated to escalate this to our fraud investigation department for formal review, which could potentially result in more serious consequences. The third finger completes his count. Third, Ms. Calloway could choose to pursue civil action independently, separate from the bank's procedures. My father's face has paled considerably. You can't be serious about options 2 or 3. This is a family financial disagreement, not a criminal matter. Unauthorized withdrawal of designated funds through potentially forged signatures constitutes more than a disagreement, Mr. Calloway. Mr. Kennedy corrects him gently but firmly. The bank takes such matters very seriously. The atmosphere in the conference room has shifted dramatically, my parents' confidence crumbling as the professional, dispassionate banking environment strips away their ability to manipulate through family dynamics. Even Noah seems subdued, the reality of potential fraud charges finally penetrating his self-absorbed bubble. What exactly would the repayment plan entail? My father asks after a long silence, his voice uncharacteristically small. Mr. Kennedy opens a spreadsheet on his tablet. The bank would require full acknowledgement of the unauthorized withdrawals, immediate repayment of at least 20% of the total amount, and a structured plan for the remainder with appropriate interest applied. Interest? My mother gasps. We're her parents. Which makes the breach of fiduciary duty more significant, not less, Mr. Kennedy explains gently. The standard interest rate in these situations is prime plus 2%, reflecting the severity of unauthorized fund diversion. My father's financial calculator mind is visibly working, recalculating his position now that emotional manipulation has failed. 20% upfront would be $7,000. Correct, Mr. Kennedy confirms. Due today, with signed documentation, for the remaining $28,000 plus applicable interest. That's impossible, my father protests, though with notably less conviction than his earlier declarations. We don't have that kind of liquid capital available immediately. Grandpa clears his throat. The home equity line of credit you established last year has sufficient available funds, as does your personal investment account with First Capital. My father's head snaps up, shock registering at Grandpa's knowledge of his finances. How did you? Public records for the HELOC, Grandpa explains calmly. And you left your quarterly investment statement visible on your desk during Thanksgiving dinner. I have an accountant's memory for numbers. Noah, who has been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly straightens. What about my business account? The one you just funded for tomorrow's investor meeting? There's $7,000 there for the office deposit. All eyes turn to him. Even my mother looks startled by this admission. Noah, my father warns sharply. What? Noah challenges. We're talking about moving money around anyway. I can delay the office lease a month. The implication is clear. Funds recently withdrawn from my account for Noah's urgent business needs are actually still sitting untouched in his business account. My father's expression confirms this revelation wasn't part of their strategy. Mr. Kennedy makes a note on his tablet. That would be an appropriate source for the initial repayment, given the circumstances. My father seems to battle internally for several moments before his shoulders slump in defeat. Fine, we can transfer the $7,000 today as the initial repayment. And acknowledge the unauthorized nature of the withdrawals? Mr. Kennedy presses gently. Another long pause before my father nods stiffly. Yes. Richard, my mother protests, clutching his arm. You can't seriously be… Evelyn. He cuts her off with uncharacteristic sharpness. The alternatives involve words like fraud investigation and civil litigation. We have no choice. She subsides into stunned silence, mascara tracking, down her cheeks as the full reality of their situation sinks in. Mr. Kennedy efficiently taps through screens on his tablet. I'll prepare the necessary documentation, the acknowledgement, the initial repayment authorization, and the structured plan for the remaining balance. He pauses, looking directly at me. Ms. Calloway, are there any additional conditions you wish to include? The question momentarily catches me off guard. Throughout this process, I've been so focused on documentation and justice that I hadn't fully considered what specific conditions I might want beyond the money itself. 3 conditions, I say after a moment's consideration. First, I want complete financial separation going forward. My accounts should be entirely removed from their access, with new security protocols established. Mr. Kennedy nods, typing. Standard procedure in these cases. Second, I want a formal acknowledgement that all future educational decisions are exclusively mine, including which institution I attend and how educational funds are allocated. My father opens his mouth as if to protest, then evidently thinks better of it and simply nods. And third, I continue, my voice steady despite the emotion behind these words, I want a written statement that any future financial support for Noah's business ventures will come from their personal funds, not from resources intended for my education or future. Noah makes a strangled sound of protest. That's not fair. You're cutting me off completely. I'm not cutting you off, I correct him calmly. I'm establishing that my money is no longer available for your projects. Mom and Dad are welcome to fund your businesses from their own accounts. But family resources, he begins, were never equally distributed, I finish firmly. My education fund was specifically designated for my future, not as startup capital for your serial entrepreneurship. Mr. Kennedy continues typing. Those conditions seem reasonable and directly related to the financial matters at hand. I'll include them in the agreement. My mother, who has been quietly crying, suddenly looks up with reddened eyes. This will destroy our family. Is that what you want, Rachel? To tear us apart over money? The emotional appeal might have worked yesterday. Today, in this professional setting with the evidence spread before us, it falls flat. This isn't about money, I tell her quietly. It's about respect. About recognizing that my future matters as much as Noah's. About acknowledging that taking from one child to give to another isn't family resource management. It's favoritism with financial consequences. We never meant to favor, she begins. Mom, I interrupt gently. You told me to consider community college because we need to be practical about finances. The same week you transferred $5,000 to Noah's account for his Miami business trip. Your actions have spoken clearly for years. The conference room falls silent except for the soft tap of Mr. Kennedy's fingers on his tablet. Even Noah seems momentarily subdued, perhaps finally grasping the magnitude of the inequity that has benefited him for so long. After several minutes, Mr. Kennedy turns his tablet around. I've prepared the preliminary agreement based on our discussion. Please review it carefully. My father leans forward, financial professional instincts taking over as he scrutinizes the document. I watch his expression shift from resistance to resignation as he scrolls through the terms. The interest rate is steep, he mutters. As is appropriate for unauthorized use of designated funds, Mr. Kennedy replies evenly. Eventually, my father looks up, the fight gone from his posture. It's acceptable. Noah seizes his phone, fingers flying over the screen. I'm transferring the $7,000 now, from the business account. He glances up, something almost like shame flitting across his features. It was supposed to be for the office deposit, but I can figure something else out. Your resourcefulness is touching, Grandpa observes dryly. Mr. Kennedy's tablet chimes with a notification. The initial transfer has been received and applied to Ms. Calloway's account. Now we need signatures on the formal acknowledgement and repayment agreement. One by one, digital signature blocks are completed. My father's usually confident scrawl, noticeably shaky, my mother's signature tearful but resigned, Noah's an angry stab at the screen. When the tablet reaches me, I sign with the steady hand of someone whose position has finally been validated. The agreement is now in effect, Mr. Kennedy announces, tapping a final confirmation. Monthly payments will begin 30 days from today, with electronic verification of each transaction. Ms. Calloway's accounts have been permanently removed from parental access authorization, with enhanced security protocols as specified. He turns to me with professional courtesy. Is there anything else you require from the bank today, Ms. Calloway? No, I reply, a strange lightness spreading through my chest. This resolves the immediate concerns. Then our business here is concluded, he states, standing to signal the end of our meeting. The bank appreciates your cooperation in resolving this matter efficiently. The formality of his words somehow makes the victory more concrete than any emotional confrontation could have. This wasn't just a family squabble. It was a documented case of financial misappropriation that has now been officially acknowledged and addressed. As we gather our belongings, an awkward silence descends. What does one say after such a fundamental shift in family dynamics? My parents seem equally at a loss, avoiding direct eye contact while collecting their things with mechanical movements. Noah, predictably, breaks the silence first. So what am I supposed to tell the investors now? That my entire presentation has to be postponed because of this? This family drama? You could tell them the truth, I suggest mildly. That your startup capital turned out to be fraudulently obtained and you're restructuring your business. Plan to reflect legitimate funding sources. He flinches as if I'd slapped him. Nobody tells investors that. Perhaps that's why so many startups have ethical problems, Grandpa observes, closing his briefcase with a decisive click. My father clears his throat awkwardly. Rachel, despite how this appears, we always believed we were acting in the family's best interests. Noah's businesses represent potential opportunities that could benefit everyone. I understand that's what you believed, I acknowledge. But taking my education fund without proper consent wasn't your decision to make, regardless of your intentions. And now? My mother asks tearfully. What happens to our family after this? It's a fair question, perhaps the first genuine one she's asked throughout this ordeal. I consider my answer carefully. That depends on whether this agreement represents just financial restitution or a fundamental recognition that each member of this family deserves equal respect and opportunity. My father nods slowly, perhaps the first glimmer of real understanding I've seen from him. We have some reflecting to do. Yes, I agree simply. You do. Mr. Kennedy holds the conference. Room door open, a silent reminder that the bank portion of our reckoning has concluded. One by one, we file out, my parents first, walking close but not touching, Noah following with uncharacteristic quietness, then Grandpa and me bringing up the rear. In the bank lobby, the morning light streams through tall windows, illuminating dust motes that dance in the air like the family secrets now exposed to scrutiny. Mrs. Patel catches my eye from her teller station, offering a subtle thumbs up that warms me unexpectedly. My parents pause at the bank entrance, clearly uncertain about the proper protocol for departing after such a confrontation. Do we shake hands, hug awkwardly, pretend nothing has changed? I'll be staying with Grandpa for a while, I tell them, solving the immediate dilemma. Until I figure out my next steps. Your room will always be there, my mother offers tentatively. Thank you, I reply, neither accepting nor rejecting the olive branch. I'll be in touch about collecting my things. Noah hovers uncertainly by the door, his usual swagger deflated by the morning's revelations. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, he seems to actually see me, not as his compliant sister who can be tapped for resources, but as an individual with boundaries he's repeatedly violated. Rachel, he starts, then stops, apparently unable to find words adequate to the situation. We'll talk later, I tell him, not unkindly, when you've had time to process everything. He nods jerkily before pushing through the glass doors, the bell chiming softly as he exits. My parents follow after one last uncertain glance in my direction, leaving Grandpa and me standing in the hushed bank lobby. The morning's confrontation complete, but its echoes still reverberating through the foundations of our family structure. Well, Grandpa says quietly, that went about as well as could be expected. Yes, I agree, watching through the glass as my family members disperse to separate vehicles in the parking lot. Phase 2 complete. Mr. Kennedy approaches with a small smile. Ms. Calloway, I must say your handling of this situation has been remarkably professional. We see many family financial disputes, but few are resolved with such thorough documentation and calm presence. Thank you, I reply, unexpected emotion, tightening my throat. After years of being underestimated and overlooked, the professional validation feels like water in a desert. Actually, he continues, our wealth management division has an internship opening this summer. Given your evident aptitude for financial documentation and analysis, I'd be happy to refer you if you're interested. Grandpa's hand settles supportively, on my shoulder as I absorb this unexpected opportunity, a door opening precisely because I finally closed another. I would be very interested, I tell Mr. Kennedy, accepting his business card with steady hands. As we walk toward the exit, I feel the weight of the morning's confrontation giving way to something lighter. Not quite resolution, but perhaps the beginning of reconstruction. My education fund is secured, the unauthorized withdrawals acknowledged, and a repayment plan established. Outside in the parking lot, the rain has stopped, sunlight breaking through clouds to create that peculiar golden light that follows storms. Grandpa unlocks the Cadillac with a chirp that seems unnecessarily cheerful given the gravity of the morning. Breakfast, he suggests as we settle into the leather seats. I find financial victories particularly enhance the flavor of pancakes. I laugh, surprising myself with the genuine sound. Pancakes sound perfect. As we pull away from Meridian Credit Union, I glance back at the building where family secrets were transformed into documented acknowledgments, where years of financial manipulation were finally addressed with professional clarity. The money matters, of course, $35,000 is a significant sum that will help secure my educational future. But more valuable is the acknowledgement, the irrefutable evidence that I wasn't imagining the favoritism, wasn't overreacting to the systematic diversion of resources from my future to Noah's fantasies. My phone pings with a message from Kaylee. Victory or bloodbath? Victory, I type back, complete with signed agreement and first repayment received. Her response is immediate. Epic. Details over celebratory milkshakes this afternoon? I smile, sensing the tension of the past months beginning to uncoil from my shoulders. Absolutely. I might even splurge for extra whipped cream. I can afford it now. Looking ahead through the windshield as Grandpa navigates toward his favorite diner, I feel a curious sense of both closure and beginning. An accounting completed and a ledger freshly opened, ready for new entries written. In my own hand. 3 weeks after the bank confrontation, life has settled into a new pattern. Not quite normal, but steadily solidifying into something sustainable. I've remained at Grandpa's house, converting the spare bedroom into a combination, sleeping space and study area, where I can focus on my classes without the emotional undercurrents that defined our family home. The first repayment installment arrived precisely on schedule, transferred automatically per the agreement. The notification from the bank carried a strange satisfaction, not because of the money itself, but because it represented accountability finally taking tangible form. I sit at Grandpa's kitchen table on a Saturday morning, spreadsheets and textbooks spread before me as I work through practice problems for my advanced accounting course. Sunlight streams through the windows, catching dust motes and creating pools of gold on the worn wooden surface. "Mail's here," Grandpa announces, entering with a small stack of envelopes, "including something from Meridian Credit Union for you." I accept the official-looking envelope with curiosity. Inside is a formal letter on bank letterhead, confirming my acceptance for the summer internship position in their wealth management division. The salary offered is modest but fair, and more importantly, the opportunity for professional experience in financial management is invaluable. "Good news?" Grandpa inquires, noting my small smile. "Internship confirmation," I explain, passing him the letter. Starting June 15th. His face creases with pride as he reads, "Excellent! Just 2 weeks after spring semester ends. Perfect timing." My phone buzzes with an incoming text from Kaylee. "Brunch at Maple Street Cafe? Celebrating Kevin passing the bar exam?" "Absolutely," I reply. "Meet you there at 11? This is another change in my new reality. The freedom to make social plans without justifying my absence or ensuring Noah's schedule is accommodated first. Simple independence that most 20-year-olds take for granted, but which feels like a luxury after years of family dynamics centered around my brother's needs and whims. As I gather my study materials, Grandpa settles into his usual chair with the newspaper. "Your mother called again this morning," he mentions casually. I pause, waiting for the familiar surge of anxiety such communications typically triggered. It comes, but milder now, a ripple rather than a wave. "What did she want?" "The usual, asking when you might come by the house, suggesting family dinner this Sunday." He folds the newspaper precisely. "I told her you'd call when you were ready." 3 weeks of separation have provided valuable perspective. My parents have respected the physical boundaries I've established, restricting themselves to phone calls to Grandpa rather than the barrage of texts and emotional appeals I initially feared. Even Noah has maintained uncharacteristic distance, sending only one brief message a week ago. "Can we talk sometime?" "When you're ready." "I should probably go by the house soon," I acknowledge, tucking my accounting textbook into my backpack. "There are still things I need to pick up." "No rush," Grandpa assures me. "Your timeline, not theirs." That simple affirmation that my needs and comfort take priority in this situation still feels revolutionary after years of family patterns that consistently placed Noah's wants above all else. At Maple Street Cafe, Kaylee waves enthusiastically from a sunny corner table, her vibrant blue hair newly refreshed. Kevin sits beside her, looking simultaneously exhausted and elated, the universal expression of someone who has recently completed a major professional examination. "The conquering hero arrives," Kaylee announces as I approach. "Financial justice warrior and future wealth management intern." I laugh, sliding into the booth across from them. "And congratulations to the future attorney. How does it feel to be done with the bar exam?" "Like I've been hit by a truck, but a really good truck," Kevin replies, raising his coffee mug in a mock toast. "A truck full of freedom and potential billable hours." Our conversation flows easily through brunch. Law firm prospects for Kevin, Kaylee's latest graphic design projects, my internship plans. It's only when we're finishing our meals that Kaylee broaches the topic we've all been dancing around. "So, any communication from the family since the great banking showdown?" I nod, stirring the remnants of my latte. Mom calls Grandpa almost daily. Dad emails weekly with confirmation of the transfers and very formal updates about family matters. Noah sent one text. "And how do you feel about all that?" Kevin asks, professional instincts clearly engaged despite his off-duty status. "Complicated," I admit. "The financial situation is resolved, the repayment schedule is working, my accounts are secure, and my educational path is protected. But the underlying family dynamics, that's messier." "Boundaries are hard," Kaylee observes, "especially when they're new. The hardest part is separating the financial justice from the emotional aftermath," I explain. "I needed to address the unauthorized withdrawals, but now I'm left with a family that doesn't quite know how to relate to me anymore." "Because you're no longer the compliant daughter who can be easily manipulated," Kevin suggests. "Exactly. Their mental image of me doesn't match reality anymore, and they're struggling to adjust." Kaylee reaches across the table to squeeze my hand. "Their struggle isn't your responsibility to fix." "I know, I agree. But I still have to decide what kind of relationship I want going forward, especially with Noah." "Any insights from the lone text he sent?" Kevin asks. I pull out my phone, finding Noah's message from last week. "Can we talk sometime? When you're ready. I've been thinking about things. A lot." Surprisingly restrained for him, Kaylee notes. No multiple exclamation points or demands. That's what caught my attention, I admit. It's very un-Noah-like in its respect for boundaries. Kevin, ever the analytical mind, leans forward. "Do you want a relationship with your brother going forward? Setting aside the financial issues? Is there anything worth preserving there?" The question deserves serious consideration. Throughout our childhood, Noah had been positioned as the family star, his achievements celebrated, his failures minimized, his needs prioritized. But beneath the preferential treatment and entitled behavior, there were occasional glimpses of the brother who taught me to ride a bike when our parents were too busy planning his science fair presentation, who defended me against neighborhood bullies even while being one himself at home. "I think there might be," I finally answer. "If, and it's a big if, he can relate to me as an equal rather than a resource or background character in his life story." "Then maybe hear what he has to say," Kaylee suggests, "in a neutral location with clear time boundaries when you're ready." The conversation shifts to lighter topics, but the question lingers in my mind throughout the remainder of brunch and follows me back to Grandpa's house. What kind of relationship do I want with my family going forward? Is reconciliation possible while maintaining the boundaries I've established? Or would attempting to repair those relationships inevitably mean sliding back into old, unhealthy patterns? That afternoon, after careful consideration, I text Noah. I can meet Wednesday afternoon at Riverside Park. 4 p.m. by the fountain. 1 hour. His response comes almost immediately, suggesting he had his phone in hand. "I'll be there. Thank you." Just those simple words, No exclamation points, no demands, no attempts to change the parameters I'd set. Another uncharacteristically restrained response that piques my curiosity about what exactly has been happening in our family since the bank confrontation. Tuesday evening, I finally visit my parents' house to collect more of my belongings. I deliberately choose a time when I know Noah will be at his part-time job, a recent development that raised my eyebrows when Grandpa mentioned it. Apparently, the loss of funding from my account has necessitated actual employment rather than full-time entrepreneurship. The house looks exactly the same from the outside: manicured lawn, tasteful landscaping, the appearance of suburban success carefully maintained. But something feels different as I unlock the front door with my key, a subtle shift in energy or atmosphere I can't immediately identify. My mother emerges from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her face lighting with cautious hope. "Rachel, I didn't know you were coming by today." "Just picking up some more clothes and books," I explain, maintaining a polite but measured tone. "I texted Dad about it yesterday." Of course, she nods too quickly. "Can I get you anything? I made fresh lemonade, or there's coffee." "I'm fine, thanks," I interrupt gently. "I won't be staying long." Disappointment flickers across her face, but she nods again. "Your room is just as you left it. Take whatever you need." As I climb the stairs to my bedroom, I realize what feels different about the house. It's quieter, less frenetic. The usual background noise of Noah's various activities, loud phone calls about business ideas, music blaring from his room, friends coming and going at all hours, is conspicuously absent. My bedroom remains unchanged, a time capsule of the life I'd lived before the confrontation. Photos on the bulletin board, color-coded study schedules, neatly arranged textbooks, all the markers of the organized, responsible daughter whose financial resources had been systematically diverted to her brother's ventures. I efficiently pack 2 duffel bags with clothes, books, and personal items, working methodically through drawers and shelves. As I'm zipping the second bag, a soft knock sounds at my door. "May I come in?" my father asks, standing awkwardly in the hallway. I nod, continuing my packing. "I'm almost finished." He enters hesitantly, remaining near the doorway as if unsure of his welcome. The confident financial advisor who once dominated our household with his pronouncements about family resource allocation now seems diminished somehow, less certain of his position. "The transfer went through yesterday," he says after an uncomfortable silence. "The first monthly payment." "I saw the notification," I acknowledge. He shifts his weight, clearly struggling with whatever he came to say. "Rachel, I know a simple apology isn't adequate for what happened. The unauthorized withdrawals, the dismissal of your educational goals, the inequity in how we treated you and Noah." The direct acknowledgement surprises me. I'd expected continued minimization, perhaps cloaked in more sophisticated terms, but not this straightforward admission. "You're right," I agree. "A simple apology isn't adequate, but it's a starting point." He nods, accepting this assessment. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the bank meeting about the patterns we established in this family, the messages we sent through our financial decisions." "And?" I prompt when he hesitates. "And I was wrong," he admits, the words seeming to physically pain him. "We were wrong, not just about taking the money without proper authorization, but about the underlying assumption that Noah's ventures deserved investment while your education could be compromised." The admission hangs in the air between us, not quite healing the breach, but perhaps creating space where understanding might eventually grow. "Thank you for acknowledging that," I say finally. "There's something else you should know," he continues after a moment. "Noah started working at Patterson Accounting 3 weeks ago. Entry-level position, 20 hours a week while he takes business administration classes at the community college." This explains the uncharacteristic quiet in the house, and perhaps the changes in Noah's communication style. That's surprising. It was his decision, my father adds, seeming intent that I understand this point. After the bank meeting, he came home and sat at the kitchen table for hours, staring at nothing. The next morning, he announced he needed to get real about his future and started making calls. I absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with the entitled brother I've known all my life. And the dog accessory business? On hold indefinitely, my father confirms. He said something about not starting new ventures with other people's money and learning the fundamentals first. The change seems dramatic, but not implausible. Noah has always been adaptable when necessary, capable of pivoting when circumstances demanded it. The question is whether this represents genuine growth or simply another performance designed to regain access to resources. I'm meeting him tomorrow, I tell my father, zipping the final bag. At Riverside Park. Relief crosses his face. He's been very anxious about that. Changed his shirt 3 times when your text came through. The image of my perpetually overconfident brother fretting over his appearance for a meeting with me carries a strange poignancy. Perhaps the bank confrontation shook his worldview as thoroughly as it affirmed mine. We'll see how it goes, I say noncommittally, slinging the duffel bags over my shoulders. My father steps aside to let me pass, then speaks again as I reach the stairs. Your mother and I, we'd like the opportunity to rebuild trust with you. When you're ready. No pressure, no expectations. I pause on the top step, considering his words. Trust requires consistent behavior over time. The repayment plan is a start, but rebuilding our relationship will take longer. We understand, he says quietly, however long it takes. Downstairs, my mother hovers anxiously in the foyer, clearly having overheard our conversation. I packed some of those oatmeal cookies you like, she says, offering a small container, for you and your grandfather. The gesture is small but meaningful, acknowledging my new living arrangement rather than pretending it's merely temporary or trying to guilt me about it. I accept the container with a nod. Thank you. We're learning, she says softly as I reach for the door. It's not easy facing our mistakes, but we're trying. That's all anyone can do, I reply, stepping outside into the spring evening. Driving back to Grandpa's house, I reflect on the subtle shifts evident in my brief visit. My father's uncharacteristic humility, my mother's restraint in not pushing for immediate reconciliation, the news about Noah's job and classes. Not wholesale transformation, but perhaps the beginning of awareness, of recognition that the family dynamic had been fundamentally unbalanced. Tomorrow's meeting with Noah will be another data point, another opportunity to assess whether meaningful change is possible or if the old patterns are simply adapting to new circumstances. At Riverside Park the following afternoon, I arrive early and claim a bench near the fountain, watching families with young children feed the ducks, couples strolling hand in hand, elderly people soaking in the spring sunshine. Normal life continuing, all around while I prepare for a conversation that might determine the future of my relationship with my brother. Noah appears precisely at 4, another uncharacteristic display of respect for boundaries. He's dressed simply in khakis and a button-down shirt, the business casual of his new job rather than the designer attire he preferred for his entrepreneur persona. His hair is neatly trimmed, his expression uncharacteristically serious. As he approaches, "Thanks for meeting me," he says, hesitating until I gesture toward the empty space beside me on the bench. "You wanted to talk," I reply neutrally. "I'm listening." He takes a deep breath, staring at the fountain as water cascades over sculpted stone. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the bank meeting. About my businesses, about money, about our family dynamics." I remain silent, giving him space to continue without interruption or encouragement. "The thing is," he says slowly, "I never really saw it before, how differently they treated us. How much was given to me while you had to fight for basics? It was just normal, the way things were. Normal for you, I point out quietly. He nods, accepting the correction. Normal for me? Unfair to you? I see that now. Or I'm starting to, anyway. A comfortable silence falls between us, punctuated by the splash of the fountain and distant children's laughter. When Noah speaks again, his voice carries an unfamiliar humility. I'm sorry, Rachel, for taking your money, for acting entitled to it, for not seeing you as a real person with your own dreams and needs. He turns to face me directly. You deserved better from me, from all of us. The apology seems genuine, absent the performative emotion or strategic manipulation that typically characterized Noah's interactions when he wanted something. Still, trust requires more than words. What prompted this realization? I ask. The bank confrontation itself, or losing access to my money? He winces, but doesn't deflect the question. Both. If I'm being honest, the bank meeting was humiliating. Seeing all the evidence laid out like that, realizing how systematically we'd taken from you while telling ourselves it was justified. He pauses. But afterward was worse. Having to really look at myself, at the person I'd become, who thought it was perfectly fine to build businesses with my sister's education money. And now? I prompt. Dad mentioned you're working at Patterson Accounting? A flicker of the old Noah surfaces in a brief eye roll. Of course he told you. Yes, 20 hours a week in their client records department. Basic stuff, but it's teaching me how actual businesses function from the ground up. And community college? 2 courses to start. Business Administration 101 and Accounting Principles. Turns out there's a lot I don't know about running a legitimate business. He offers a self-deprecating smile. The professor asked me to explain my funding model for the dog accessory venture and, well, I took my sister's college fund. Without permission didn't sound great when I said it out loud. Despite everything, I find myself smiling slightly at the image. I imagine not. The thing is, Noah continues, growing serious again, I'm not asking for forgiveness or for things to go back to how they were. I know that's not possible. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to change, to be better, to earn my own way instead of expecting others to finance my ideas. I study my brother's face, looking for signs of the manipulation that has characterized so much of our relationship. Instead, I see something new, genuine discomfort, vulnerability, the uncertain expression of someone venturing into unfamiliar, emotional territory without their usual defenses. Change takes time, I tell him finally, and consistent effort. I know, he nods. I'm not expecting overnight trust, just maybe a chance to show you who I'm trying to become instead of who I was. It's a reasonable request, modest in its expectations and acknowledging the damage that needs repair. After considering for a moment, I offer my response. We can start with coffee, once every couple of weeks, neutral ground like this. See how it goes. Relief washes over his face. I'd like that. Thank you. As the afternoon light turns golden across the park, we talk about smaller things. His experiences at the accounting firm, my internship offer, classes and weather and ordinary life. Not quite the easy conversation of close siblings, but not the tense, guarded interaction I'd anticipated either. Something new taking shape between us, its final form yet to be determined. When our hour concludes, we walk together toward the park exit, an awkward moment arising as we prepare to part ways. Should we hug? Noah asks uncertainly. Maybe next time, I reply honestly. This was a good start. He nods, accepting the boundary without protest, another small indication that perhaps real change is possible. One step at a time, he agrees, offering a tentative smile before turning toward the parking lot. I watch him go, reflecting on the journey that brought us to this point. 3 months ago, I was the overlooked daughter whose education fund was being systematically drained for her brother's ventures. Today, I stand as a young woman who advocated for herself, secured her financial future, and established boundaries that are beginning to be respected. The money matters. $35,000 represents educational opportunity and financial security that I've rightfully reclaimed. But more valuable is the shift in how I view myself and how my family is learning to view me, not as a supporting character in Noah's story, but as the protagonist of my own. As I head toward my car, my phone buzzes with a text from Grandpa. "How did it go with Noah?" "Better than expected," I reply truthfully. Not miraculous, but genuine. A start. His response comes quickly. "People can change when properly motivated." "The bank statement from Mr. Kennedy arrived today. Your account is looking healthy again." I smile at his subtle reminder of the tangible results of my stand for financial justice. We're celebrating with takeout from Golden Dragon tonight. Your favorite sesame chicken is already ordered. Driving away from Riverside Park, I feel a curious lightness. Not the dramatic satisfaction of confrontation or the sharp vindication of victory, but something more sustainable. The quiet confidence of someone who has identified an injustice, methodically documented it, and successfully addressed it through appropriate channels. My family will never be the same after what happened, but perhaps that's not entirely a bad thing. The old dynamics were fundamentally unbalanced, built on patterns that consistently privileged one child while diminishing another. What might grow in their place, given time and continued effort, could potentially be healthier for everyone involved. At a stoplight, I glance at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The same face looks back at me, but something has changed in the eyes. A steadiness. A certainty that wasn't there 6 months ago when I first began documenting the unauthorized withdrawals. The bank manager's expression when I presented my evidence had been validation, professional recognition of methodical work well done. But the true victory wasn't in his reaction or even in the signed repayment agreement. It was in claiming my own power, in refusing to remain the overlooked daughter whose resources could be diverted without consequence. The light turns green, and I continue forward, toward Grandpa's house, toward my internship, toward my reclaimed education, toward a future I've protected through my own documentation and determination. The story of the $35,000 will always be part of our family history, but it no longer defines my present or constrains my future. Some lessons come at a high price. This one cost my parents $35,000 plus interest. But the education it provided, about respect, boundaries, and consequences, may ultimately prove more valuable than any degree their money could have purchased. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.